In this video series, I'm going to show you how to remix a song in Reaper. So before we start adding drum samples to the production, I want to mention that I changed one thing. If we go up here, you can see we have multiple takes for our mix. Take 1, 2, and 3. And I created this by using a service right here that split the file by vocal and instrumental. Then I put the files together to create multiple takes. So I have the normal one on take 1.
Out of all the countless roads that I could choose,
Just the vocal one on take 2.
out of all the countless roads,
And the instrumental one on take 3. As you can tell, it's not perfect, but it'll make it easier to build up production having separate choices. So next we're going to add a kick drum. But instead of creating a new track, we'll go right to the Media Explorer. Go up here to View and choose the Media Explorer, where we can browse all our samples on our hard drive from this window or dialog. I already created a folder right here for the remix samples I want to use in this song, right in here. So we're going to start with our kick. And instead of dragging it to a track or adding a sample plugin to that track, we can do this all in one step. If we go up here to the menu for the Media Explorer and choose Options, we could choose Default Action for double click. Then I'm going to choose right here, Insert Media into Sample Player on New Track, which will create a plugin on a new track that's already named based on the sample we choose, all ready to go. So we'll choose this. Now if I double click any sample in here, watch what happens. We'll double click the kick, and it creates this kick track, puts a plugin on this track with the Resample-matic 5000 plugin with the kick sample in there. All ready to go. Now we don't need to choose what MIDI note to trigger it with, as we're only putting this one sample on this track. So any MIDI note will work. So we'll close this, and then we'll create a MIDI item, Control on the PC, Command on the Mac. Let's make it about 4 bars. Double click it to open up the MIDI editor. Then we'll change our grid to quarter notes and paint in some notes for our kick. Hold on Alt Control on the PC, Option Command on the Mac, and just draw in some notes. And now we have quarter notes playing from our kick drum. But then it stops at bar 5, so we can loop it by zooming out and trimming it to the entire project. Now the kick is playing to the whole song.
out of all the countless roads that I could choose. Thank the stars I chose the one that led.
We're not going to arrange this part right now. We'll do that a bit later. Let's move on to some other drum sounds. So next, we'll add the snare. Reopen the Media Explorer. Here's a snare we're going to use. Just double click it. And that creates the snare track with the Resample-matic 5000 plugin on it, which we could hear right here. But again, we don't have to assign this to a MIDI note because this is the only sample we're going to use on this track. So we'll create a MIDI item the same way for 4 bars, double click it to open up the MIDI editor, and let's add a snare part. We'll go to the 2s and 4s, and put an extra hit at the end for a fill. And again, we'll zoom out to the entire project, trim this out the whole song, and now the snare plays through the whole song.
Out of all the countless roads that I could choose.
Now let's add a clap. Again, reopen the Media Explorer. Here's the clap sound we want to use. Double click it, and it created the clap track down here. We could open it to see the Resample-matic 5000 plugin. We could trigger it here. But again, we can just trigger it from the MIDI editor. Again, we'll create 4 bars, double click it to open the MIDI editor, and let's just put this on beat 4. So it'll play every other snare. And again, we'll loop this through the whole song, and now it plays through the whole song.
Out of all the countless roads that I could choose, thank the stars I chose the one that led to you.
Sounds good. Let's save this and move on. Next, we're going to do the hi-hat. Now, the hi-hat is going to be a bit different, as we're going to use multiple samples on one track. So let's reopen Media Explorer. Here's a sound we're going to use. Again, we'll double click it, which creates this track. Go to the effects, and here's the sound we chose. So for this, we're going to choose a note start and a note end. I'll choose F sharp 2. Now to create accents, I like to make 2 hi-hats that are tuned a bit different. Let's bring the tuning up a bit, like this. And then let's duplicate this by copying and pasting it and tuning down the second one, which sounds like this. We'll change the note so we can trigger it differently, G sharp 2, and adjust the volume so this one is a bit lower, about -6. Then I want to add an open hat. So let's duplicate this again, but change the sample by reopening the Media Explorer and choose this one. Drag it in to here. Now you have 3 sounds playing on one track. But this one holds out too long. So I'm going to choose Obey Note Offs. So let go of the note, it'll choke the hi-hat. And we should also change the open hi-hat note to A sharp 2 with B flat. So now we have 3 hi-hats to play. Again, we'll create 4 bars, double click it to open up the MIDI editor. And I'm going to start off by changing this to quarter notes. And again, paint the first hi-hat. So it sounds like this. And then to create some accents, we'll do the same thing on the second hi-hat. And then shift these over, right-click to select them all, change this to 1/8 notes, and shift it over. Now we should have an accented part, as the second note is 6 dB lower than the first one. Let's solo it so you can hear it better. Let's put an open hi-hat right here. Delete this one. Double check the length on this one. Make sure it extends to the next bar. And let's hear that. Perfect. So now we can zoom out to the entire project, trim it out, and now it plays throughout the song.
Out of all the countless roads that I could choose, thank the stars I chose the one that led to you.
And again, we're going to cut this up and turn things on and off a bit later. Right now, we're just adding the parts. Save it. So that's part 2 of remixing a song. Check out part 3 next.
Bingo, boys, let's go.